they're moving on a bunch of different fronts besides Gaza. Okay? On the one hand, they're trying to antagonize Hezbollah. They're making moves to antagonize Hezbollah and attempt to engage in another war in order to keep Netanyahu in power. Yeah, in Lebanon, exactly. And on top of that, we've got what's going on in the West Bank. And I feel like a lot of people are overlooking the West Bank, but over the last several months, there has been a huge crackdown with massive police and military raids throughout the West Bank. Many people are being disappeared into Israeli prisons. And again, if you are in the West Bank and the occupied territories, you are actually under a different set of laws than if you were in Israel proper. You are under military law, which means they can hold you indefinitely. They can arrest you on suspicion of any crime they would like and then hold you for as long as they like. And that's pretty scary, right? Well, it's getting worse. And it's getting worse in a very worrying way. Specifically, the Israeli government is trying to annex the West Bank without calling it annexing. So basically, they want to eliminate the government of Gaza and be the governing body of Gaza. Israel wants this. They want to get rid of any representation the Palestinians have in their government. And they want to do all of this while still claiming, the West Bank is an occupied territory. They haven't annexed it. It's still its own thing, but we just manage everything in it, essentially. And we have that now confirmed. The New York Times here has an Israeli official describing a secret government bid to cement control of the West Bank. This is effectively formalizing the apartheid. Much of the apartheid system in Israel has relied on kind of this informal network. This is the formalization of the apartheid. This is strengthening it and institutionalizing it, essentially. In a way that it hasn't necessarily been. It's kind of been ad hoc, like, military regulations. This is bringing it under a civilian apartheid. Okay, Israeli judges have long ruled that Israel's control of the territory is a temporary military occupation and complies with international law. A powerful minister's recent speech, caught on tape, suggested the government is trying to change that. Interesting. In a taped recording of the speech, the official, Bezalel Smotrich, he's one of the most evil guys in the U.S. government, Israeli government, can be heard suggesting at a private event earlier this month that the goal was to prevent the West Bank from becoming part of a Palestinian state. Quote, "I'm telling you, it's mega dramatic," Mr. Smotrich told the settlers. Quote, "Such changes change a system's DNA." So essentially two things. This shows that Smotrich believes that a Palestinian state is to some degree inevitable, which is interesting. But two, this is a deliberate attempt to seize the West Bank. But they don't want to annex it, because if they annex it formally, then they have to give representation to the Palestinians that live in the West Bank. And again, that changes their entire political landscape. And they don't want that. They want this to be effectively, democracy for me, but not for thee. Yeah. If it isn't Ben-Gvir, it's Smotrich. True. Yeah, the Israeli government's official position is the West Bank status remains open to negotiations between Israeli and Palestinian leaders. The Israeli Supreme Court has ruled that Israel's rule over the territory amounts to a temporary military occupation, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Mr. Smotrich's June 9th speech at a West Bank gathering may make that posture harder to maintain. In it, he outlined a carefully orchestrated program to take authority over the West Bank out of the hands of the Israeli military and turn it over to civilians working for Mr. Smotrich in the defense ministry. Part of the plan has already been incrementally introduced over the past 18 months, and some authorities have already been transferred to civilians. Wonder what those are. Quote, "We created a separate civilian system," Mr. Smotrich said. "To deflect international scrutiny, the government has allowed the defense ministry to remain involved in the process," he said, "so that it seems like the military is still at the heart of the West Bank governance." Yeah, no, yes. Settler colonialism in Zionism is fascism. This is a fascist state. Netanyahu tried to make himself a dictator last summer. He is a fascist. He's trying to hold on to power even though the war cabinet has been dissolved, even though like Likud is turning against him. Like, he's trying to hold on to power by antagonizing Hezbollah in Lebanon. He's willing to throw the entire country into a meat grinder for the next 30 years in order to maintain his own power. It's a death cult. And they're following him off the cliff. It's crazy. Yeah, quote, "It'll be much easier to swallow in the international and legal context so that they won't say that we are doing annexation here." Exactly. Like, again, it's specifically to avoid having to contend with the reality that Palestinians are human beings who deserve human rights. God. For 5 minutes, can the world stop with the death cults? Man, that'd be nice. I just want to play Elden Ring. Mr. Smotrich said Benjamin Netanyahu was aware of the details of the plan, much of which was foreshadowed in a coalition agreement between their parties that allows the prime minister to remain in power. Mr. Netanyahu is with us full on, Mr. Smotrich said in the speech. Cool. Thanks, dude. Look at all these new buildings being built. Are they for the Palestinians? No, they're built on like the corpses of disabled Palestinians who were too slow to get out of the way of the bulldozers. Okay? Like this is built on like bloodied ground. Okay? This is then being commodified for the benefit of like the dominant racial group of Israel. Like this is an ethno-state. This is fascism. And we need to say it loud because some people just don't get it yet. It's being screamed, but they don't get it. It's not okay. It's definitely not okay. Yeah, in particular, he pointed to one change under which military officers no longer oversee most of the process by which Israeli settlements are expanded. Land is expropriated and roads are built in the West Bank. Those roles are now overseen by, quote, "a civilian working under the defense ministry," unquote, who does not work for military commanders, he said, but in a new directorate that Mr. Smotrich supervises. This is just a way of consolidating power underneath Netanyahu's allies. Like, as far as I'm concerned, this is an attempt to take different branches of the Israeli government and like empower them based on their loyalty to Netanyahu. Like, this is it's not getting a little fashy. This is fashy. This is fascism. God. Absolutely insane that we live in this time. And when I say like, is What do you mean? Like, Israel is like trying to start shit with Lebanon? Yeah, major news media across the United States, only a handful of days ago, was reporting based on Israeli intelligence that apparently Hezbollah stores missiles and explosives at Lebanon's main airport. Wow. When are they going to start moving? We've seen this playbook exactly. We've seen it play out already. It's being played out in Gaza right now. Oh yeah, they're storing the missiles in the hospitals next to the baby incubators. Time to bomb the hospital. Oh yeah, all of their bombs are in the main infrastructure. Under all the roads, under all the bridges. They've been storing their missiles actually. So we need to bomb the bridges and destroy the hospitals, and especially those infant wards, and well, that will be that. Then we'll defeat Hezbollah. Like, that's it. No, exactly, Amber Brains. It is just an excuse to expand the conflict. And the thing is, Hezbollah is not but they're not good guys. They're not good guys. But there are a lot of them, and like, this has all of the hallmarks and potential to be Israel's Vietnam, essentially. Like if you think that like a few rockets from Hamas is something to sniff at, Hezbollah is like an actual military. They have actual military equipment. They have actual military training. Their troops have actual military experience because they've been actually fighting ISIS. Like, they have combat seasoned troops, which is very, very important, and they have a much more sophisticated tunnel and fortification system than what exists in Gaza, because they have actual supplies, and they are just purely, for the most part, when we're talking about them militarily, a gigantic militia, and they've been spending decades digging into the ground to make like their fortifications. And like, if you are just bombing civilian infrastructure, you're bombing the biggest airport in Lebanon, they're going to fight you. You know that they're going to fight you. And you know that this is like an unwinnable conflict for you. Canada is advising citizens to leave Lebanon while they can today. Oh, damn. Yeah, Minister of Foreign Affairs urges Canadians to leave Lebanon while they can. Let's see. Security situation in Lebanon increasingly volatile and unpredictable due to sustained and escalating violence between Hezbollah and Israel. Yeah, last I heard, there was like 60,000 troops being put on the border with Lebanon by Israel. Yeah, I mean, holy smokes. Pentagon chief calls for urgent diplomacy to avoid Israel-Hezbollah war. Because, guys, you have to understand, in this particular circumstance, the Pentagon does not want Israel to antagonize Hezbollah. The same way the Pentagon doesn't want Israel to antagonize Iran. Okay? The United States right now has different goals, has different geopolitical strategic goals around the world. One is Ukraine, the other is Taiwan. And they want to shift more attention to Taiwan right now, and they can't do that if Israel is basically rocking the boat in the Middle East. And so the Pentagon is just scrambling right now to try and make sure this doesn't happen. Unfortunately, that runs exactly counter to what Netanyahu needs to do to remain in power, which is effectively to expand the conflict, perpetuate the conflict, and make it just grind into an attrition war that lasts forever. Like, it's not, his goal doesn't even have to be to win. He just wants it to be extended forever until he can consolidate his domestic power and assume dictatorial control. God. Yeah, Hezbollah isn't quite the same as just bombing children in Gaza. So things are just they're getting bad. And to just turn back to the settlements real quick, the West Bank, etc. Israeli settlement expansion in Palestinian areas amounts to a war crime. UN rights chief Volker Turk says Israeli settler violence risks eliminating any possibility of establishing a Palestinian state. Almost like that's exactly what they want. It's like they want to ethnically cleanse the land and then annex empty territory, thereby eliminating any chance of a Palestinian state. That's exactly what they want. That was the plan. That's been the intention the entire time.